Hello there and welcome to all the revolutionists. This is a Revolution is back with you this week to discuss all things RevPro in Coventry, and we got a show to run down. I'm George, as always, joined by my good friend Mr. Dave the Mark. Dave, how we doing, sir?
Yeah, good, thank you, mate. Yep, good. Enjoyed another RevPro Sunday, and slightly jealous that I won't get to go to Barcelona this weekend for what looks like a pretty tasty card there as well. Some new faces and some familiar ones as well in some pretty awesome matches there. So it's the weather is heating up, as is the RevPro schedule, because you're starting to count down the shows to the J Cup and the Rumble. That Sheffield show in 2 weeks is starting to look really, really tasty. Even without announcing matches for it, but revealing matches through the little YouTube videos they've been sharing. That's been really interesting.
Yeah.
Chris Ridgway versus Leon Cage in a 2 out of 3 falls match, the semi-finals and the final of the Undisputed British Heavyweight Tournament. Like that should be banging. Then we're back to the 229, and then it's I think, is there a trip to Southampton before the J Cup?
There is Southampton, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like a little bit of everywhere, isn't it? So yeah, it's probably my favourite time of year. This bit, when it was like this time last year, a real run of shows during June. You get a lot for your monthly subscription to RevPro on Demand.
Absolutely. I always liken this a little bit to sort of WWE from Rumble to WrestleMania season. That's what kind of what this feels like, the shows, the different types of shows all the way through to the anniversary show. And yeah, just a great slate of shows there. It's funny because just before we came on, I was like, we've got Coventry. I was like, is there a show happening this weekend? Because I completely blanked Barcelona out of my mind, purely because I'm not going. But it'll be great to sit and watch that one this weekend. And yeah, like you said, from there, it's a good run. Sheffield, London, Southampton, J Cup, Rumble. I'll be joining in for the Southampton show, J Cup and Rumble, and that's back-to-back weekends as well. Like that's a tasty little schedule going on there. Looking forward to it.
It is, mate, and it's funny because you said about the run from the Rumble to WrestleMania. You need different types of shows during that period, and this Sunday, the Coventry show, I found really, really enjoyable. A lot happened, and I feel like they got the really interesting and strong balance between adding little layers for those of us that watch it closely enough to care about every little detail, without rushing anything, without blowing anything which could be saved for those bigger shows, but putting so much in there to make it, like I said to you just before we came on, Sunday was a lot more than just 8 matches. It felt like every single match had something to take away from it, where you're like interested in, where's that going? You look into the J Cup, you look into the Rumble, you look into the anniversary show, and you're starting to think, where does this angle go? Where does that little bit of conflict go? Where does that little bit of collaboration go? Which we'll absolutely explore. But it was for me a very, very rewarding show for like I say, those of us that sit and watch it very, very closely.
Yeah, nice.
I'll be curious to see. You watched it from home, obviously. I'm always curious to see how well those things get picked up on camera, and whether it's added to with commentary or whether they gloss over it to let you. There's always that argument, isn't there, between show or tell. Some wrestling companies tell you what you're meant to be picking up. They tell you that there are breadcrumbs there. And some wrestling companies just show you the breadcrumbs and let you pick them up yourself. So I'll be curious to see, from your perspective, how they did with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get into that, I'm just going to apologise to anyone watching on video. We're now at that lovely stage of year where the sunshine is really bright, and misjudged it through my window. So if I have a bit of a lens flare or look like I'm just in a cave, my apologies. We'll sort it for next time.
Look angelic, mate.
Oh, thank you, mate.
Like a little glowing halo.
Oh, look at that. Look at that.
You
See,
watch, in a minute, I'll be sitting here in the lovely sunshine. In a minute, I'll be getting up to turn the lights on because it's going to get done.
yeah, well, I just had that thought. Actually, I'm going to need to turn the lights on soon. Anyway, right. So, Dave, you know what? I think you've set your stall out quite nicely for how you enjoyed the show. If I can get you to rate this one out of 10, where are you going?
I'd go for a really solid 7. I don't think, and I think that's almost by design. I don't think they put a card together that was meant to blow anybody away. I feel like they put a card together to bridge the everything that happened in London 2 weeks ago to what's going to come in Sheffield in 2 weeks' time. And it was, for me, the things I found most interesting were the things that happened between the matches and at the ends of matches.
Yeah.
As well as what took place in the ring. The quality is always there. The in-ring quality is always there. But it's for a show that, didn't have Michael Oku, didn't have Connor Mills, didn't have Robbie X, and was an opportunity for lots of guys that haven't had as many opportunities. The likes of, all three Bryant brothers getting on the cards together. The first time we've seen Emerson Jane for 5 years or so. Those sorts of things. I feel like it was as strong a performance as they were going to get from what they put together. But like I say, it was all the little bits in between that I think I probably want to explore the most.
Yeah. Okay, so before we came on, I said to you, because as we say, we don't tell each other what we're going to go with. I said I thought we'd be massively different on this one. We're not as massively different as I thought we'd be. I've gone with a 6, but the caveat for this for me is the stream went down about 3 minutes into Emerson J versus Kanji. So I'm judging this on a curve of the rest of the show. From what I've heard, by all accounts, it was a cracker of a match. Basically, it came back up right on the finish. So I saw the first couple of minutes, and then the finish is what I saw. Yeah. And look, that's fine. It'll be a match I'll go back and watch.
I haven't looked to see if the full HD version's up on RevPro on demand, not or yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen myself, but it's one I'll probably watch over the weekend.
It'll probably be there by the time this pod comes out, or within a couple of days after, and hopefully you'll get to see it then.
Absolutely,
for me, that was match of the night in ring. I do think that the things that happened in ring wise, I've talked a lot about what I look for in wrestling and having in-ring quality, the psychology of the wrestling, the storytelling that's done between the ropes rather than what's said on promos and things like that, combined with my level of investment and whether there's jeopardy in who's going to win the result.
Yeah.
When you get all of those things together, that's when I am the happiest as a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
And I feel like we got that more in this sleeper hit show in Coventry than we probably did on any other RevPro show this year. I couldn't call who was going to win between Liam Slater and Cameron Kai. I couldn't call who was going to win between Leon Slater and TK Cooper. Shaw Samuels and JJ Gow I couldn't call. Emerson Jane and Kanji I couldn't call. The only ones where I was going in confident of the result was Young Guns and the Bryants.
Yeah.
Ridgeway and Nino. And the Medusa Complex and the Cutthroat Collective. They were the only ones where I could pretty confidently predict the winner.
Yeah.
But I'm invested in storylines in all of those matches.
Yeah.
And that kept that level of intrigue. And RevPro is my brand of wrestling. It's what I like in wrestling. So the in-ring quality is always going to pretty consistently hit for me, except for occasionally when a little bit of the psychology is lost, which tends to be matches that other people adore. Like what I always think of as like the cliche, the cocaine banger, which loads of people absolutely love, and I don't enjoy as much. Or if it's, every so often you'll get a match that something just doesn't gel, and it just doesn't really work. But it's very rarely in RevPro that you get that, such as the standard of people in the ring. So for me, there was a lot of that jeopardy, that investment to match the in-ring quality, which was what I really enjoyed, without necessarily me going away and saying, well, that's a top 10 match of the year.
Mm-hmm.
This was the first show, in fact, this year that doesn't have a match that broke my top 10. But then I'm not upset about that in the slightest, because the quality was still consistent. And a lot of what I took, like I say, the most takeaway from was those little extra additions to storylines, the new layers around the onion.
Yeah, and look, let's be honest as well, right? This, when I'm sitting here saying it's a 6, this 3-4 years ago would have been much higher up on that scale, based on the product that we had at the time. I'm not saying that it was bad 4 or 5 years, but I'm just saying that now the way RevPro has been able to expand the roster, have this great core of UK based talent that is able to cycle in, week out. You mentioned the names that were missing at the beginning of this, and we still had a card like this. Okay, so that shows just the increase in quality we've had as well. And look, when I was going to RevPro shows at the beginning, there wasn't much signs of storyline, or maybe one storyline, and that was it. But not these interwoven stories across multiple divisions. You weren't getting as much of that. So that is obviously, when I'm sitting here saying a 6, like, we've come such a long way as a product that was a very good product, which now, to me, I mean, I've said this all the time, I know that other people won't agree, but to me, RevPro is the only independent company of its kind in the world, like, that is able to sit at a level where it works with the top talent that it does in the UK, of all places as well, not in America, but over in the UK, and yet still have a really independent approach, where we're going to the HMV Empire, where we're going to the 1865, the Network, like all those really grimy club places. Like, it's an interesting one.
You think, like, I had free tickets in the second row, and 50 quid, I reckon, I spent on those free tickets combined. 15 quid for each of my kids, 20 quid for me. Sitting in the second row, like bloody Zazaya jumping over my daughter to get to Jay Joshua. Like, that's like the value for money is insane. And before we came on air, I was watching. So we were recording this Tuesday night. I was watching last night's WWE Raw, and it's funny because I'm watching Raw, and I was thinking, this is really similar to the Coventry show. Not an awful lot of essential stuff is happening on this show, to the point where casual fans could skip this show and just pick up next week and understand everything that took place. And Coventry was like that. You could read a review of it, maybe my 10 takeaways, or you could look at Cage Match and just see the results, and you'd be like, okay, cool, I got the gist of what happened. I'm not gonna go away and watch it. But actually, those of us that are really invested in it would be saying, well, I know I really liked, because I got to see a new element of the relationship between Sapphire Reed and Lizzie Evo. And I'm really curious about what happened between Liam Slater and Cameron Kai. And what does Kanji do now to come back round to being on top? I saw a new side to CPF that I really liked. I saw Xander and Leland Bryant in a different light for the first time. They've gone from being like plucky little underdogs that are fun to watch to being a credible tag team that I can see like future tag team champions in. Charles Samuels literally like reached into my chest and like punched my heart to make me cheer for him over JJ Gao, much to the chagrin of my kid sitting next to me, because you're like, oh my God, I really want to see Charles Samuels fight at York Hall for the Undisputed British Heavyweight Championship one last time. Like, I didn't feel that going into Coventry It was like, Charles in this tournament, that's a bit random. Cool, okay. And within a week, I'm going away being like, no, scrap all my plans for the year.
Yeah.
Charles Samuels versus Michael Oku at the anniversary show. That's better than what I pitched and better than what you pitched. Like, in my eyes now, having just like watched one 90-second front-facing camera little video clip and then a 15-minute match. I don't even think it was 15 minutes. A lot of the matches on Sunday were shorter than we've got used to, and I feel like they really benefited from it.
Yeah, only 2 matches broached the 15-minute mark.
Yeah, the Young Guns and the main event. Yeah, and funnily enough, I've been a little bit critical of some of the tag matches this year going a little bit long, and this one was bordering on what I would call a long RevPro match. 15 minutes isn't a long match, but it is quite a long RevPro match. But I feel this is the one that warranted it the most.
So let's start here, Dave, because I'm gonna let you continue speaking, but I'm gonna say I think I disagree very much on this one, and I actually think.
Oh, okay.
I felt that this one, and I'm just gonna say my point, and I'll let you speak. I felt that this one went on way too long, and I felt this, while maybe not a squash match as such, this was one where I felt as great as the Bryants, and they did look great. As great as they looked, I don't think they should have been. I think they should have been put away quite handily by Young Guns. And I think this match at that amount is either longer than or roughly around the same amount, give or take the pre-match shenanigans, as the match with Mills and Jay Joshua. Right. I'll chuck back over to you for your thoughts on that then.
That's curious.
I bear in mind when I say
that. There's a little bit of food for thought that I'd not really considered.
That was 15 minutes, but that also had like a 5-minute pre-match brawl as well. Yeah, so there is kind of that,
I'm going to compare my reaction and your reaction to the Bryants versus Young Guns to another controversial match which has happened recently. Again, I'm going to lean on my WWE viewing. Gunther versus Pat McAfee.
Oh.
So Gunther versus Pat McAfee seemed to upset a lot of people because they felt like Pat McAfee got far too much in on Gunther and survived too many submission holds, and the match went longer. Like, just looking at the who is wrestling, how long it's gone, it doesn't all marry up. But I actually enjoyed the Gunther versus Pat McAfee match because I felt like at no point did Pat McAfee ever look like he was going to win. He always looked like he was just trying to survive. There was a load of reasons why Pat McAfee got to survive as long as he did, and Gunther still looked like an absolute killer. So for me, it all worked. Okay. With the Bryants and Young Guns, I felt that there was a lot, and maybe I'm picking up breadcrumbs that aren't there. Maybe I'm picking up dust, thinking it's a crumb. But I felt like Ethan and Luke were putting out quite a lot of these messages that suggested that there's an element of them being the big dogs, you know, like the bullies in the playground, and them losing some of their focus because of it. They're lacking. Okay. They're a little complacent. Mm-hmm. They're lacking a bit of killer edge and a bit of focus. And there are signs between the two of them that it's getting to them. Again, we said it a few weeks ago. Luke is telling Ethan what to do in the ring.
Yeah.
He's demanding the tag. He is bossing Ethan Allen around a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But when Luke gets in the ring, he's not backing it up. He's getting in the ring and he's having the same problems that Ethan's having against these two lads who aren't on their level. So on this occasion, I was quite satisfied by the number of kind of false finishes there were and the length there was. Maybe we could have shaved a couple of minutes off. But credit where credit's due, RevPro have shaved minutes off how long their matches have been going.
Yeah.
I haven't got cage match in front of me, but I feel like the Barcelona Blacklist match was longer than this. I feel like the CPF match was longer than this.
Just gotta look them up now. I had Young Guns loaded just
They
a second
felt like
ago.
they were closer to the 20-minute mark.
Yeah,
or at least they felt it sitting at ringside, even if they weren't.
Yeah, I understand completely what you mean. Yeah, Young Guns versus Barcelona Blacklist, 19 minutes, 18 seconds. What was the other one you mentioned?
CPF so that would have been Live in London 94.
Live in London 94.
I think that went over 20.
That went 1 second shy of 23 minutes.
There we go. So I feel like they did. Shave some time off in comparison to those matches.
Yeah.
Maybe they could have taken an extra minute or two off. But I did feel for the first time, the Bryants haven't been squashed by anybody. They've had pretty competitive matches in all their matches. But this was the first time that I took the Bryants quite seriously as a tag team. Okay. When they're a trio, they look like they're at their best. A bit like CPF look like they're at their best when it's all three of them.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's been Leland and Zander without Nino, it feels like they're being presented as this young rookie tag team for the crowd to get behind. But
yeah,
their chances of winning matches at the moment are very low.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Whereas this time, I felt like if they go out and win their next match, that's not going to come as a surprise. Mm-hmm. And it's going to feel earned, and it's going to feel on merit. And if they earned themselves a tag championship match, it would feel earned on merit. Mm-hmm. I suppose it's a little bit like when True and Lacey came in for the tag league, and they were just getting battered by everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, cool, we've kind of earned our stripes now. We're actually going to have more competitive matches. We're going to look a little bit stronger. We're going to look like a more credible tag team.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's kind of what this showing was for the Bryants.
Yeah, and I can take those points. And, it's a really interesting point you mentioned about Young Guns. So, like I said, the match overall, really fun match. I thought everyone looked great. For me, it just felt like it went on a bit long. But the point that you made there, and like you said maybe it's breadcrumbs, maybe it's just picking up on something that's not there. But certainly, like you said, we saw it in London. We saw it with our own eyes at Barcelona Blacklist match. And I can't say I've always...
saw it, right?
Yeah, we did, because you were sat a row in front of me, and I was sat, and we both turned to each other at the same time. So we both saw exactly that.
Which suggests that it's not me just like watching too closely. It suggests that there was something there for us both to pick it up.
Because if it was just you watching too closely and then you just turn around and I go, oh yeah, that's like, you can influence someone, can't you? You can sway them. But the fact that we both had that same, that's an interesting note. It's not something that I can say that I've noticed too much more. And whether that's me not looking as intently, whether that's they are not playing out there loud for everyone to see, and it's much more subtle in its approach, that could be the thing, because it could depend very much on the crowd and environment that you're in. If it's a very loud venue, you might not pick up on it as much. If it's a quieter venue, you might pick up on it a bit more. If you're there live compared to watching it on home, there's going to be things that you might pick up on that you're not going to as well. So I'm going to watch, and I'm going to remind myself when I watch next few Young Guns matches to watch with that a little bit more intent in that direction. Because look, I will be the first one to say that as much as I love what I love, sometimes I can really get in there with the intricacies of stuff and see it. Sometimes, unless it's, like you said, told to me this is what's going on, sometimes I don't pick up on it as much. But I'm going to go and watch with that intent going forward with these guys. And look, you've done the impossible, Dave. You've made me intrigued enough to go and watch Pat McAfee versus Gunther this weekend, just to finally see what it's all about. So, what we're going to do now?
Should we explore some of the shorter matches on the card?
Yes, let's. Which one do you want to crack on with?
Let's go Cameron Kai and Liam Slater, because that was, what was that, about 8.5 minutes?
That was 8 minutes. Yeah. So the open.
How did that come across on the feed?
So, I did not like this match at all. So,
oh, really?
It came. So I tell you why. On the feed, it didn't come across with much energy, right? So this is one for me that felt like maybe it was a misplaced match on the card. And again, it could be very different depending on how this came across in the venue compared to how but it came across a very quiet. It was a very technical striker kind of match. There were times when it felt like it was a bit one-sided, and the jeopardy that I felt going in, it just felt like something was off with the pace of the match. At times, it did feel like they were just kind of walking around a little bit and kind of just, I don't know, there was just something that felt off. I don't know whether this was
gel.
I don't know whether it's styles just not gelling, because on paper this sounded, as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be a good one, right? So I was well hyped for this one coming in. It also felt like, to me, if you change the first and second match around, I feel like that might have, the overall show, that feels like the beginning would have started off a bit better, a bit quicker pace. It felt like an odd start to the show. And look, we've seen it before, right? We've seen the technical matches, technical striker kind of matches with Deeb and Kanji, for instance, starting the show and it being a riot. This one just didn't hit the mark for me.
That's funny, because I felt like it was a really good opener.
Interesting.
And again, maybe I'm influenced by the fact that I was watching this one with my kids. So I'm there at the venue. My two of my three kids are with me, and this was like the perfect way to get the show started. We had a nice, neat, tidy 8-minute match that told what I felt was an interesting little story. I really enjoyed Cameron Kai trying out a few different things in there.
Yeah.
So he was clearly trying out a couple new methods to get the crowd in. Really simple things, like when he was standing on the apron to do his, I'm not great with all the different moves. What would it be? Springboard cutter, slingshot cutter.
Yeah.
He's there and he's stamping on the mat to get the crowd clapping.
Yeah.
Such a small detail, but actually it worked, and it worked in what I think is now the hardest venue on the RevPro circuit to get a reaction in. Coventry is, we talked about it before, it's a very new crowd.
Yeah.
It's a very family orientated, it's probably the most family friendly show they do. Loads of kids there, very quiet. And clearly, what I noticed was there's not a lot of chanting. There's quite a lot of like, let's go, like, come on, Cameron. Like, but there's no, Cameron Kai.
And
that's
a good point, actually.
I could sit there and I could start those chants up myself. And if I did, I think people would join in with me. But even I don't tend to, because I'm sitting with my kids. And with an autistic little boy sitting next to me who's really sensitive to loud noises. He doesn't want his big loud mouth Essex boy dad sitting next to him shouting. So, like, I liked seeing Cameron doing that side of it.
Yeah.
I liked from the in-ring side of it, Cameron was hitting hard. Liam Slater, I always enjoy watching because I love technical wrestling. I didn't know who was going to win, so when Liam did catch him, that was like a nice moment because there was an element of surprise to it. But the thing I liked most wasn't related to the match at all. It was the fact that when Cameron didn't shake Liam's hand, Liam followed him backstage, and whilst they were walking backstage, was constantly talking in his ear. He wasn't telling him off. He wasn't trying to humiliate him. It was a teacher talking to a student who had made a mistake.
Yeah.
And immediately I'm thinking, Leighton Buzzards in Japan. Is Liam Slater going to try and mould Cameron Kai? Cameron Kai and Leon Slater have a lot of history, both as opponents, both as partners. Cameron hasn't won in 6 months.
Wow.
I feel like there's a reason for that. Where's this going? So in 8 minutes, I got a nice, neat little match. Not a match I'll go away and watch again, but a nice opener to the card. It was like, you know, a nice little kind of appetizer before even the starter comes out. You know, just a nice little bread roll and some warm butter. And then at the end of it, I've got that little hook where you like, well played, RevPro. You did something that's made me think, and now that's going to be on my mind until I see Liam Slater again and Cameron Kai again. Then we get the Medusa Complex versus Cutthroat Collective.
Yeah.
And immediately it's like, cool, now we're going to do it all again. We've got an interesting match. I'm pretty sure Medusa Complex are winning, but I'm not 100% certain. I'm really curious to see what's going to happen between Lizzie Evo and Sapphire Reed.
Yeah.
And they played with it all really well without slapping you around the face to say, these two can't get on. It was way more subtle than that.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I was well impressed, like genuinely really, really impressed with Sapphire and Lizzie. I think they got the level enough for everybody to understand the story who maybe weren't in Doncaster, but not so much that it felt like it was amateur dramatics.
Yeah, agreed. I love this match. I thought it was really, really great. And like you said, like at the beginning, right, none of these matches are going to make it into my top 10, and that's okay because they gave me what I needed on just like a good show going throughout, like a decent card. I want to see more of Medusa Complex in RevPro. I want to see more Charlie Evans in RevPro. I want to see more of Millie McKenzie. In whatever way I get it, I want more. Okay.
We're absolutely not done with Medusa Complex and Cutthroat Collective. There's so much more to be had. I think it's just a case of how long's Charlie staying in the UK for?
Yeah.
And will she be able to come back to make this a longer story?
Yeah. Yeah.
Beyond just this tour, or is it we just have her for this tour, we just have her for X number of dates?
Yeah, exactly. It'll be interesting to see how that goes down. The Cutthroat Collective story. So, first of all, in ring, I thought all of them were great. Like they've all found got their stride. I mean, we've known Medusa Complex like singularly for a while. That are great anyway. We saw how great they are as a team. I feel that the progression of Sapphire last year just phenomenal, and she continues to get better. Lizzie is another one I've seen such growth of in ring. So she always felt like she had her character down, and there would be times where I used to feel that she would lean more into the character side because easy to work a boo and that from that. And actually, over again the last year, I've seen the in ring for me catching up and surpassing the character side, which is great, right? That's what you want to see. You want to see people develop and have multifaceted ways that they can work as a wrestler, not having to rely on one single thing. I'm interested to see where this goes for a couple of reasons. So one of the things I have felt like the Cutthroat Collective has somewhat drifted from focus a bit. And we had obviously such a fiery introduction to them. We had the amazing match at Anniversary last year, and then nothing really of substance since then. We had the little side quest of Mercedes Blaze trying to recruit Millie, which felt like it was getting to Medusa Complex. But given that we also know that Medusa Complex were supposed to be booked somewhere else this weekend originally, unless they were going to somehow double duty it, I'm not sure. I've seen weirder things in British wrestling. Then it feels like maybe this wasn't the original plan. So where did that fit in overall? And maybe it's one of those things of, like we said, plans change. You have to adapt on the fly a little bit. And the breadcrumbs that are there don't always leave us to the destination because sometimes real life happens and we can't get there, right? So we need to be very mindful of that. But it feels like where we're at now feels like and this was obviously mainly because of the introduction of Anita Vaughan at the end of the match in Doncaster. It feels like a tease for Hyperactive. And again, I'm intrigued to see where this is going. I'm reserving judgment for how well I think it's all going to be executed until I see what happens, because I think, again, we need to see that, right? We need to know where it's going to land before we can say, we can talk about week on week how it's making us feel. I really hope at this stage it's not leading to Sapphire leaving Cutthroat Collective, because if that happens, well, I say if, it depends as well, because we've got a lot of other factors. Are we not doing something bigger because it's hard to get all 5 schedules? I mean, these women are some of the best in the game. They're going here, there, and everywhere around the world, defending titles. Like, it's hard to get all 5 of them in a room, I can imagine. So you can't necessarily do that. But if we are going to go down the route eventually of Sapphire leaving, I would love it to be kind of like 2004 Randy Orton in Evolution, thinking he surpassed Triple H. And in this scenario, Triple H is Nina/Alex. That's where I would like to see that go. That's just a personal thing. I think we're way too early for her to leave Cutthroat Collective, because I think she's a big, they're all big personalities, but she's a big part of making it what it is. And I think her leaving it would be, for me, I think it would be the wrong decision. But at the same time, the story that they're telling between the two of them, the fact it's got me going, well, is it because of this, or are they doing this? I don't want to see that. Like, it's got me thinking, like you said earlier, of all of the different possibility, right? So it's gripping me. It's not a story where I'm going, oh, this is shit because they're doing it. Not at all. They're just giving me that. I'm going, I just want to see where it goes. And there'll be stories which I think will resonate higher with me. There'll be stories where I think I'd be much more critical of if it comes off and they don't tell it in the right way, because that's also important as well. But I'm intrigued nonetheless.
Yeah, me too, mate. And I feel like they're pacing it really, really nicely.
Yeah.
One of my biggest complaints in wrestling is when a story feels like it's been rushed. I like the slow burn. I like the details. I like the breadcrumbs. I like seeing the dynamic change week to week.
Yeah.
My favourite part of this was at the end when Sapphire kind of looked super vulnerable.
Yeah.
Offered her hand to Lizzie. Lizzie took it, and Lizzie showed her softer side, but then gave her sort of like a pretty hard slap on the back.
Yeah.
As she was leaving the ring.
Yeah.
And do you know what? I don't think it's a coincidence at all that this is going to sound proper nerdy. Sapphire Reed did her hair and makeup differently this week to how she normally does it.
Oh, I can't say I noticed
I don't think that was a coincidence. I think she purposely did her hair and makeup to make herself look gentler.
So, you know what the interesting thing was in commentary that's come back to me as well? Lizzie Evo was played up as the veteran.
Yes.
Sapphire was basically the up and comer. And I thought that was interesting, given that in age, there's not a huge amount of difference between them. I think there's maybe 4 years between them, which in wrestling, if you've got 4 years more experience, that is a lot of time. But at the same time, it's not like we're talking about a 35-year-old woman and a 21-year-old
in my 10 takeaways, I said that Sapphire left the match a foot shorter and 3 years younger.
Yeah, and that's a really good way to say it.
As like Sapphire Reed from 2025.
Yeah.
But she left like Sapphire Reed from 2022.
Yeah, that's
and it was purposely done to, show the character dynamics in the group. I'm really into it.
Yeah.
It was my favourite thing on the show. Although I think the Kanji match versus Charlie Evans was my match of the night, as a complete package, from everything from the entrances to them leaving the stage, this was my favourite little moment in the show.
So do you want me to tell what my favourite moment in the show was?
Yeah, go for it.
But taking away the Kanji one, it was TK Cooper and Leon Slater.
Mate, that was so good.
So we spoke obviously last time about this tournament and who we thought was going to be in it, right? And I think you came up with Leon Slater, I came up with Sha Samuels, and we both had reasons why potentially neither of us would be in. Funny enough, they're both in it. I don't think either of us had TK Cooper, and I think if we had to
No, not at all.
if we had to write down another 10 people, I probably wouldn't have put TK Cooper. So look, I've been a big proponent.
But you know what I love?
Podcast.
I love how Teeks played into that.
Yes.
With his own little YouTube video this week, where he was putting over the fact that he was like, I've been a champion for like 75% of the last like 3 years in wrestling.
Yeah, and I thought that
should be in this tournament.
Yeah, that was really well done.
And you're like, yeah, absolutely, you're right. Shame on me for overlooking you.
Yeah. So when this came up, look, I kind of thought, I was like, okay, unexpected. And when you're thinking of a number one contenders tournament, I don't know why, and I do this with all companies, and this is a me and an expectation issue maybe. I always go, well, they're obviously going to put all of their strongest people forward for it, so I'm going to get Connor Mills, I'm going to get this. And then, so when TK Cooper popped up, I was like, one of these things doesn't quite feel like the others right now, okay? But
normally those people are in the tournaments as a bit of cannon fodder, aren't they?
Yeah, and so I tell you what it was that got me thinking. So I came into this one going, this one wasn't like there were some matches where I'd look and go, right, I thought this person would win. This one had me actually thinking that TK could win it, right? Because this is where, as you will do the same, my nerdy little brain goes into overdrive and go, TK was putting this for a reason, okay? And that reason wasn't to go in one match, cheat to win, and then get put out, even if it is against Leon Slater, right? And then we got that promo on YouTube, like you said.
Yep.
TK, just a tag guy, Cooper. I loved it. I thought it was really great, and it shows like when he's got the opportunity to get really creative and talk and stuff like that, that he could do the hype promos, rah kind of promos in ring. He can do the sad, we need to split up promos. But this was more interesting than I think I've seen anything of TK Cooper in RevPro.
I think he's one of the most creative wrestlers in British wrestling. And I think he's one of the most interesting wrestlers in British wrestling as well. Like, I genuinely adore and am always fully focused when TK Cooper's in front of me.
Yeah,
I think he gets wrestling so much, and he clearly loves wrestling so much that everything he does is intentional. It has thought behind it. Every facial expression, every movement. And I want people, if you haven't, to click on my 10 takeaways for one reason. The front cover for the 10 takeaways is a photo of TK Cooper, and the takeaway that's about this match is a different photo of TK Cooper, and they epitomise this match. They're both TK on the stage, TK before the match, standing, looking up, having a moment of just calm, focus, let's go, wearing his really simple white and black TK Cooper Headbutt Messiah t-shirt, not a Sunshine Machine t-shirt, tucked into his shorts. And the second one is the relief, the joy, the shock, the overwhelming feeling of positivity of having won the match and got away from Leon, and it's him sitting on the ramp, just unadulterated joy. And it sums this match up perfectly. And again, the detail I loved the most, for a minute, Leon Slater looked like he was going to smack Ref Harv. And Liam Slater sold it brilliantly. He came rushing out like a football captain who is interfering to get the hothead away.
Yeah.
For some old football kind of examples, for a minute, Leon Slater turned into John Joe Shelby, Johnny Barton, Roy Keane, Paolo Di Canio, Thomas Repka, another good old West Ham one. A hothead who has blown their top, and the guy who knows Leon best sees it early enough to get in the ring and cool it down, have a moment where he just checked with Ref Harv, be like, "We good? Like, you cool? You're not going to go back and put in a complaint about us. You're not going to go in and get him, fined or kicked off the next show. Leon, let's get fucking out the ring and get backstage." And it was so well acted and performed. It could so easily have been like a Shindy moment where it's like, literally, I always have amateur dramatics in my head because ultimately independent wrestling and amateur dramatics are quite similar.
Yeah.
And this was not that. This was really, really well done. And it was just an extra little detail. So you've got TK Cooper's arc, his storyline, everything that's happening with and not happening with Sunshine Machine.
Yeah.
Leon Slater, which I'm curious by because I feel like there is a big heel turn in Leon Slater coming.
Oh, interesting.
Liam Slater being this peacekeeper mentor now to potentially 2 people. And again, how long did this match last?
So this match lasted, I want to say, 11 and a half minutes.
What an economical use of 11 and a half minutes.
Yeah.
Honestly,
great.
The more I thought about this show, the more I was fascinated by it and enjoyed it.
Yeah. I loved it coming into this match. TK, alone with his video, really sold me on it because it felt like there was more at stake and I was given more of a reason to care. And I think this is a thing that RevPro are doing a lot better with now as well. We've often said here, I just don't know why they're not utilising YouTube and shorts and stuff like that. And they've really gone into it lately.
There's been like 15 shared in the last 7 days.
Yeah, I love it. Like, genuinely, this is what I want more of.
I'm kind of hoping and expecting that that's going to get some balance to it. Because at the moment, they're probably spamming it a bit too much.
Yeah.
But I suspect what that is they did a lot of filming at the 229. They've got some guys who are a bit more independently able to produce a decent video. Like Teeks obviously does his streaming, Liam Slater does his promo work, to do some in between, and then they've experimented with them being YouTube shorts, YouTube videos, then all the videos became shorts.
Yeah.
It feels like they were finding their feet with YouTube this week.
And do you know what, right?
And I feel like the short is the way to go.
Yeah, 100%.
Free a week?
Yeah. I reckon Teeks' one was better done in the way it was as well. Like, it felt like it had more impact. It was just a guy who is like he said, like, all this kind of, everyone's kind of looking down on him a little bit, going, what, like, he's just a tag guy. Why would just the tag guy get like a whole YouTube video made? Like, it just felt a bit more real, a bit authentic. But because
how
of what
nice was it to hear people talk?
Yeah.
Like Will Haven. When did Will Haven ever get to talk? When did True and Lacey get to talk? I've never heard Chris Ridgway talk, I don't think. I've ever heard the fella say anything other than like a little bit in the ring. I've never heard him cut any form of promo in RevPro.
Yeah.
And theirs were brilliant. Yeah. I sent you the Caven one, right? And I sent it to my missus because it cracked me up.
Yeah,
with
same.
The on 3, 1, 2, 3, mugs, cunts. And you're like, oh my God, Caven, you can't say cunt. You can't say cunt in RevPro. But it was beautifully done.
Dave, I'm just going to say it now. We're going to have to put a warning on the start of this video.
Sorry. And then, like, Ridgway's one, where you're just like, oh, dude, you should talk more. Like, you're even more deadly and sinister when you're talking about your love of wrestling. Like, I've been really, really impressed with them. And
same.
And what a surprise, Chris Ridgway had an absolutely quality match once again. And I'm leaving thinking, please make him Cruiserweight champion.
Yeah, so here's some bits. So to finish off, kind of some final thoughts on the last match. I thought it was a great match. I thought the advancement of TK Cooper is interesting. And I can't say I would have said that when the graphic dropped. But the way they've made, he's gone and made me care about that match. Spot on. Leon, interested what you said about the heel turn, because I feel the heel turn is coming for Oku, and we've been talking about this balancing act of his personality, and I think it's coming for Oku. And I left Doncaster going, there's your Rumble winner. Like Leon Slater has just Leon, Oku, and Amira got Oku and Amira booed. Okay, that never ever happens. But like you said, the way he left the match on Sunday, Leon Slater is now on a, I think, 5-match losing streak in RevPro.
Is he really?
Yeah, 5-match losing streak. Yeah, he's not won a match. He's not won a match since Southampton. Is it Southampton?
Oh yeah. Of course, he had the Francisco match.
February the 9th. Because
and the tag match up in Sheffield with Liam against Manders and Oku.
Yeah, but the Francisco match at Southampton, he lost that one obviously. But he didn't, but he did. Right?
Yeah,
and that's, we've obviously got to be very, like, you got to bring context when you're looking at the numbers. But
yeah, exactly. Because if you say he's on a 5-match losing streak, and then you're like, well, that makes no sense that they booked him to.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the context behind it.
So I watched Super Strong Style 16.
Yeah.
And I watched the Progress show over WrestleMania weekend. First Progress shows I've watched in 5 years. And like literally straight away, I was frustrated immediately because my logic just says to me, why is Cara Noir just lost to Minoru Suzuki when he's the #1 contender to face Luke Jacobs?
I thought the same. I won't lie.
Why book that match?
Yeah.
Just put somebody else against Suzuki.
Yeah.
It
makes no fucking sense.
Things like that just frustrate me because it feels like I'm thinking more about the booking than the people booking it. And that should not be the case. I am just a mark. This is their job. This is their bread and butter. And if you say Slater hasn't won for 5 matches, well, how can he be in the tournament? How can he be,
exactly.
How come he wrestled him at high stakes? Exactly. But there's a lot of context to those 5 matches, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
Which is when you can tell those people that watch it and those people that just keep up with it.
And that's why I like looking at the numbers behind it, because when you do look at the numbers, it's interesting to see how the numbers feel compared to how the action on screen feels as well. And most of it aligns. Do you want me to tell you the one that really didn't align all that much? But the second best performing man in RevPro, Will Caven. And that was down to literally has won 3 matches, had 5 matches this year, won 3. So there are people that have won more matches than Will Caven, but being a champion, defending his title, keeping the belt for as long as he has shot him straight up the rankings. It's been really interesting looking at it from that side. But yeah, Leon, the numbers side of it, I don't know if I see a heel turn coming for him, but I do see a Liam Slater coaching. And look, we could,
something's happening there, right?
We could get Tag League, right? Because I've said this a lot now, right? We could get Tag League and Liam coaches Leon and Cameron. There's a tag team for you, right?
Yeah, which could do.
While that's a put together team,
but it's not out of nowhere, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like those lads wrestled at Royal Quest together.
Of course they did,
23.
Yeah.
They've wrestled a couple of tag matches in RevPro together. They've always been kind of
right each other's orbit,
but more like because fans compare them, and they had lots of matches together in their formative kind of first couple of years in RevPro.
Yeah.
But it was always friendly rivalry. Mm-hmm. There was never heat to their matches. It was, or the heat came from wanting to outdo each other, but they always shook hands at the end. They always left together. Like it was, there's something there that's fun to play with. I also like Liam Slater and Leon Slater as a tag team because in Sheffield, I loved watching Liam constantly telling Leon, like literally just talking him through the match. Like they had made a playbook for how they were going to play this match and they were working through it. And then when it didn't go how they'd planned it, having to improvise, It's really, really, really enjoyable. I liked that a lot.
Yeah.
Question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who got the loudest crowd reaction of the night from all of the wrestlers, with the exception of when CPF came out?
Ooh.
Who got the loudest cheers, chants, and the biggest Coventry pop?
I genuinely don't know, mate.
Nino Bryan.
Ah.
Yeah. It feels like there is definitely being a reward here for some patterns in who they book for Coventry shows.
Yeah.
The Bryants have been heavily featured.
Yeah.
Ridgeway has.
Yeah.
CPF have,
Yeah.
as well as your regulars. And it if you'd never been to a RevPro show before and you turned up on Sunday, you'd think Nino Bryan is like the big name, and
Mm-hmm.
and CPF are like bloody like Oku and Amira. Like they are beloved.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Nino Bryan versus Chris Ridgeway.
Yeah. Same.
I'm liking seeing Ridgeway win more than he loses. I feel
Same.
like he benefits from that.
Yeah.
But Nino Bryan benefited because him losing to Ridgeway, there's no shade in that. And I'm plotting this story in my head of what a Chris Ridgeway Cruiserweight Championship run would look like. And with the young talent that qualify as cruiserweights, I feel like having a heel veteran as champion is really interesting.
Yeah.
Caven could do the job,
Yeah.
but it's not the Will Caven. They'd have to change Will Caven's character in RevPro. And why
Yeah.
change the Will Caven character when you've got Chris Ridgeway?
Mm-hmm.
I also found it really interesting that Robbie X, in his short that was released on YouTube this week, made it very clear that he's going to win the Revolution Rumble and go after Michael Oku.
Interesting.
So was that effectively Robbie saying
Ruling
he's
himself
not
out.
going after the Cruiserweight belt anymore? He wants the Heavyweight Championship.
That's really interesting because one of the
if
things
that's
I
the
wanted.
case, who are your cruiserweights? Young Leon Cage, young Nino Bryan, and then you look at people like if they were to bring other cruiserweights in, they're generally going to be young up and coming talent.
Yeah.
As opposed to Chris Ridgeway is like the standout guy there.
Yeah. So what I found really interesting. So first of all, the match I thought was great. Ridgeway is just up there as one of my top right now. Okay. I want to see them build a division around him the same way I want to see them build a division around Ethan Allen, right? I think Nino is looking great. I think Nino is getting that JJ Gale of 2 years ago push, where he's being put in against people that are clearly a level above in terms of stature and looking really good against them, not getting the win, but going along.
Doing a lot of learning.
In terms of the numbers, he has the second worst points total out of every man in RevPro.
Yep.
But again, this
is where literally that was JJ 2 years ago.
But this is where the eye test comes into it, right? Where if you're actually watching and you're seeing the level of what he's going up against. So again, it's the context behind what's happening. I like that trajectory for him. What was said on show was, in previous years, we've always wondered about when someone's going to call their shot and when the challenger for the J Cup, we know the J Cup is going to call their shot. This year, that's not in question. It's going to be at the anniversary show. So straight away, there's your first match booked for the anniversary show, right?
Yeah.
So no matches have been booked, and the first is a cruiserweight title match. So this has then got me thinking.
The J Cup is 4 weeks' time?
Yes, it's the 14th of June.
So genuinely, surely they're going to announce one of the main surely Oku's challenger will be the Revolution Rumble winner.
You would think so?
I think genuinely that could be the first match announced. the very first match for their biggest show of the year could be Will Caven versus someone.
Yes, yeah, that is going to be
Does that suggest to you that maybe the J Cup's going to be won by an import?
So that is, however, here's something else interesting I found out when I was looking at it. The J Cup's been won by 7 men, Dave. 3 men have won the ensuing title match. 4 men have lost the ensuing title match. The 4 men that have lost have all been imports. The 3 that have won have all been homegrown. So we're not looking at patterns here, right? Where we'd go import, come in and win, because that doesn't happen in RevPro. But yes, I would say.
And also another thing, I wasn't. I'm 99% sure every J Cup winner was working face at the time that they won the J Cup.
Yes, yeah.
I'm not the only one I'm not 100% sure on is ELP. I can't remember because he did a bit of both ways of working.
Yeah.
I'm sure he was a face when he won the J Cup.
So
everybody else 100% was.
He challenged David Starr, and I think David Starr at the time was a heel.
Yeah,
I think.
So could Chris Ridgway be the first heel to win the J Cup, or are we going to stick with tradition? Homegrown. By the time the anniversary comes round, I expect Caven to be losing.
Yeah,
it's got to be Leon Cage, isn't it?
So that's for me. There's 3 options, and this is it, right? Ridgway versus Caven doesn't feel like it can happen, right?
It's a weird dynamic, isn't it?
But
It'd be a great match. I'd love to see the match.
I also don't feel like Leon taking the belt from Caven is the right way to go. Personally, I'd be happy for the lad, but I actually want to see. But then they're doing that story now. I was gonna say I really want to see Leon take the belt from Ridgway, so I'd like them to have seen him to get the belt to Ridgway first. I don't think Ridgway versus Caven works unless they somehow manage to really babyface Ridgway up.
This is where my little bit of fantasy booking could work perfectly.
What's that?
My fantasy booking, I put it in one of the articles the other day. I want Leon Cage to win the J Cup.
Yeah.
Beat Will Caven at the anniversary show. It's worth kind of caveating this. I want Caven to be booked quite strong until the anniversary show.
Yeah.
Keep getting trios wins with True and Lacey. And keep getting the odd single win that's non-title. He doesn't need to defend it more than he has to, but just not looking quite as weaselly. So when it's Caven versus Cage, Caven can be a bit of a bully. But Cage gets the upset win, shocked face, roll-up win. And then the very next show loses it to Chris Ridgway. So we get Leon Cage winning it, and then we get that wonderful moment taken away from us immediately, and then we get the long-term redemption arc of Leon Cage working his way back to Chris Ridgway and then beating him. So we've got the Chris Ridgway Leon Cage rivalry all the way through it. We get the Chris Ridgway title run. We get the Leon Cage moment at the anniversary, J Cup moment in Stevenage, some adversity, which I love. Some adversity, and then Leon Cage gets to finish his story.
So everyone, you can see that this is now being co-hosted by myself and Triple H.
Oh mate, I've been watching too much WWE, but I do like that idea. And it's one of those ones where it's funny. I can't really think of too many other options.
Yeah, so
I can't think of any imports that I think could come in and run with the championship.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
I can't see many homegrown talents that feel like they're being set up to win it.
The other thing that we've got,
but then RevPro always has this way of making me think like I'm really clever and I'm onto them. And then Andy just pulls something out of left field that isn't a swerve for swerve's sake, but is just enough where I'm like, oh, I didn't see that coming. That's cool. That's much better than what I thought. There's a reason he does. This for a living, and I teach kids how to draw shapes.
I reckon I think there's three options you've got here, and I think one of them works. So you got the first two options are Ridgeway and Leon. Okay, I do think that whoever's taking the title should be homegrown because look, by that point, Gable will have had it a year and has been beating some bigger names, so has earned that cachet of building himself up. So whoever gets the win over him, it will be a bigger moment, right? So you want that to be
and
someone
the Leo
homegrown.
Rush winning the J Cup didn't like it was a great moment, but him carrying the J Cup, if we think of that as like again a WWE comparison, when somebody carries the Money in the Bank briefcase, it's almost like that's its own little run of its own. The Leon Cage, the Leo Rush story, having the J Cup slowed the Cruiserweight Championship picture down quite a lot, didn't it?
It did, yeah. So
and
there's
maybe
that. So
we don't want to repeat that. So I would feel like if it was someone from further afield, it needs to be someone who can commit for definite to a bit more regularity with their appearances. So maybe not someone who's based in America, but someone who's based in Europe, or maybe not someone who is contracted to another country, but an independent wrestler that can kind of work a bit more freely.
Yeah,
But then who is that
I'm
person?
with you. Well, that's it. Because my other thoughts were an import. Okay, and I'm not thinking of the big names that could be. Okay, because we've got the Mercedes thing going on now, where you've got the big name out in America, taking on, right? So unless, but then I was gonna say, do you have a cave-in match both nights? You have one match being a title match one night where he beats the J Cup winner, and you have another match the next night and have someone beat him there, a scramble
It's
or something.
It's a 2-night event.
Yeah.
Leon Cage can beat Will Caven on night one and lose it to Chris Ridgway on night two.
Yes. But like I'm even trying to think of Europe, and I can't. I know that while my knowledge I'm trying to increase of the European scene, there's not that immediate name that jumps out to me as someone who has been brought enough.
And the thing is, I've been watching a bit more European wrestling the last I don't know few months. And there are some really cool names out there where I'm like, I'd like to see Peter Tanyi.
Bobby
I'd
Guns.
like to see our friend Senza Volto, Joseph Fennick Jr., Lawrence Roman from WXW. Like, there's some really cool people.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I don't think the Stevenage family-friendly crowd. I don't think that's the right place for a big moment for a European independent wrestler.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like the Stevenage crowd is a very casual, family-friendly crowd. They love their WWE names, their AEW names.
Yeah.
They love the people they see all the time.
My other thought, being someone who has history of RevPro, they are foreign based and they have been working recently with Michael Oku, is Mike Bailey. Like, could that?
He's won it before, isn't he?
He's won it before.
I love two-time champions.
Yeah.
Because my other thing is I like my wrestling to have some reality with sport.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not, not every Premier League club has won the Premier League. And it's not a different club every single season.
Yeah.
That's not realistic. So I love the idea. I wanted Robbie X to win it as a second time this year. That was my pitch.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Yeah, it was. Well, Dave, we don't have long to wait, mate.
Very interesting.
We're going to have 4 weeks to go, and then whoever wins that first match is going to win it. So,
well, yeah, this is it, mate. Whoever wins the first match at the J Cup goes on to win the trophy.
Yeah. Oh God, fuck! I've just looked. So I've got the listing up. So obviously, Jushin Thunder Liger win the first one, and in the notes, Jushin Thunder Liger lost to Josh Bodum. Oh my God. Yeah, I think for what seemed like
life could have been very different.
Yeah, for what seemed like a tournament that this time last year, or actually following last year, we probably said next year felt nailed on Cameron Kai. It feels like a very different landscape now, doesn't it?
And you never know, though. maybe that's why he's lost all these matches.
Yeah, there could be some booking
To
there for
really
it, couldn't there?
subvert the expectation.
Yeah.
The joy of a tournament is things can happen out of nowhere. Look at Charles Samuels.
Yeah. I mean,
I cannot wait for Sheffield
mm-hmm.
because I'm gonna either have my heart broken or I'm gonna have one of the biggest emotional reactions to RevPro I've ever had. Because in the semi-finals, Charles Samuels is gonna wrestle somebody.
Yeah.
And he's either gonna have his dream taken away or he's gonna win it. Then he's gonna go into the final and either have his dream taken away or he's gonna win it. And what I suspect is going to happen, I think Jay Joshua is going to take out Zazaya, and we're going to get RKJ versus Zazaya, with RKJ winning because of Jay Joshua, which sets up Jay Joshua versus Zazaya in. It feels like we're going to some kind of street fight, Falls Count Anywhere match, which makes me feel like that's not happening at the Revolution Rumble, because you can't have a no DQ tag match and a street fight on the same show that's only going to have 5 matches.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. So for half a second there,
palate cleanser.
I was, even though you were saying Jay Joshua, I had Josh James in my head. I'm like, and I'm waiting to. I'm trying to follow. I'm waiting to ask you. I'm like, why is Josh James going for Zazaya?
James versus Zazaya from. But yeah, so that would mean at the J Cup we get Zazaya versus Jay Joshua in some really kind of epic scrap.
Mm-hmm.
RKJ goes through to the final. Shah Samuels beats TK Cooper to go through to the final.
Yeah.
And then either we get what we want, which is Shah Samuels beats RKJ and we get one more King of Your Call moment. Or what I think is more likely is Shah is going to do what he always does, which is be handed some lemons by Andy Quilden, turn them into lemon parfait, and all along it was going to be RKJ versus Oku, which is the most obvious match. Mm-hmm. But all along you're not talking about RKJ because Shah Samuels has made it about him in this beautiful way.
Yeah. What I'm really loving about this, so this was the one that was completely unexpected to me, right? Like, I did not expect Shah to win here. As great as he has been hitting it, right? We know what Shah can do in the ring, right? We know that. But for the longest time, like we've said before the David Francisco stuff, Shah wasn't really given much to get into from a character where to get his teeth into, right? He was the guy that said, oi, oi, threw his scarf around a little bit, went in there, had a match, job done. Since the Francisco match where he got to show a range of characters, I think that's setting up what was to come. And like we said, there's things that look like they were going to happen sooner, that real life intervened with, that maybe caused a pivot, and we're in a happy place with the pivot because we've got this idea of where this pivot's going to lead. And what he's doing character-wise to get where he is now makes me feel that bit more invested. And
so it's on my to-do list this week to get my thoughts on Shah Samuels down onto paper in a deep dive, because Shah came back at Revolution Rumble 2023, and for a few months he kind of just slotted back into things. He had some matches he'd never had before. He had his first match with RKJ. He wrestled Oku. You know, some of the matches that he couldn't do whilst he was with NXT UK, whilst these guys became the face of RevPro.
Mm-hmm.
And then, unless I'm forgetting one, I'll do my research to remind myself before I write it. But unless I'm forgetting one, his first bit of kind of meat was Spike Trevay, which kind of started at Uprising 2023.
You're right, yeah.
And from that moment until now, everything Shah has been involved in, he has made so much bigger than it kind of had any right to be.
Yeah.
You know, Shah Samuels versus Spike Trevay was paid off in St. Neots.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it wasn't a York Hall match. But they put the work in like that was going to be a big, big deal. They were cutting promos like independently of themselves and then he did it with Connor Mills.
Yeah.
You know, sure, we're going to run a little story where you're going to cut down a little bit and go for the cruiserweight title. Cool. I'm going to make it a massive deal. I'm going to do a week's worth of videos about me trying to get weight. Like, the guy puts in the work more than anybody, and I genuinely believe he is the man that so many young talents should be studying. How he makes his work feel highly important, no matter where it is on the card, no matter where the show is. He is a proper pro wrestler.
Yeah.
And I'm in awe of him, if I'm honest, mate, because at this stage of his career, you'd expect the fella to just be winding down, phoning it in, you know, just kind of doing see how many more shows I've got left in me. I'll turn up, I'll do my 10 minutes, I'll get the crowd cheering, and then I'll go home and, take my money, and then I'll come back again next week. But the guy's still grinding away like he's 20 years old. And he's the only wrestler, genuinely the only wrestler in RevPro who's our age. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. He's older than Quilden. Probably the only wrestler that's older than Andy Quilden, which is crazy.
Because I'm pretty sure Andy and I are the same age.
Yeah.
He might have been. There might be a few months between us.
Yeah, I know
Andy's a little bit older than me.
Andy's younger than me. I know he's younger than me, which I was like, God, I am definitely. That sounds
just
really,
from thinking
that sounds really
podcast where you're
really
like,
slated, but yeah.
If you were 11 in 1998, I was 11 in the year 1998. We must be the same year at school. That sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Mate, you will just unrelated from RevPro. I don't know if you saw it on social media, but there was a show. I think it was out in Qatar recently that Shah was part of, and look, there's a lot of things that I can say about that area of the world that I'm not going to get into, but one of the things that I loved seeing, it was either Qatar, somewhere like that.
The show in India.
Oh, was it India? Oh, sorry, I thought
he went out to Mumbai.
I know there's a Qatar company that I know there's funny enough from the A Squared podcast, Steve Linsky. He and I are friends on Facebook, so I see him sharing some of the stuff a lot about Qatar, and that's where I thought was the India one. We
might both be talking about things that are correct, and we're talking about two different things. But
I'm
he
talking
was in Mumbai last week.
The big arena that he was in, where he was walking down a ramp, and it was just like a proper arena. I don't know if you've seen that one. That I just loved seeing that for him. Like, that was so cool.
He's one of the most genuine and loveliest fellas that I've met through RevPro.
Yeah, same.
And I hold a special place for anybody who was really, really good at giving me their time before I started doing anything that was public with DaveTheMark.com and stuff like that. Because I'm hoping at a point now where people might look at stuff and be like, oh, actually, this is quite good publicity for me.
Yeah.
To have this fella write something about me. But Shah was giving me insight into RevPro's 11th anniversary without knowing who I was, just because I'd messaged him saying I'm going to write a little thing for RevPro. Just wondered if you had any memories of the first ever RevPro show, and the fellas, sending me like voice notes and just telling me all these funny stories. And him and Zach Knight were probably like they're two guys where I'm like, you were really, really good to me when you didn't need to be. Like, I'm just literally an average Dave dropping you a message saying I'd like to write a little something, could you help me out a bit? And you looked at it and thought, I'll do that, why not?
I love that. I mean, I still look at when we had him on the pod, and he couldn't have been nicer. Just so lovely. I remember it was a fucking cursed podcast, and he was going from every room in his house to try and get the Wi-Fi, but it was just so giving, and that's what I took away from that, was that it would have been so easy for me to have turned around and said, look, we can't use what we've got. I appreciate him giving us some time, but it's not going to work. But the level of effort he went to try and do that for us meant that I was doing everything I could, where I was putting text on screen and everything, because actually it wasn't about necessarily what it could get for us, because look, there is that element of it as well, right? Not gonna be around the bush. We have guests on, we want to tell interesting stories, but it's also good for us when we have these people on. But in that moment, it was actually, this guy's done so much for it, and like literally there is trying all night for hours, that no, we're going to do everything we can for him.
If he wins this tournament and wrestles Michael Oku at the anniversary show, sorry, at the Rumble, it will absolutely deliver. It will be one of those matches that you look at on paper and think, oh, that's not the biggest match they could have played.
Yeah.
And then it will hugely over-deliver. It would be the match that I envisage in my head is Fantastica Mania last year, Michael Oku versus Ultimo Guerrero, where you look at it and think, I'm not sure if Ultimo Guerrero at this stage of his career can deliver a top quality main event match, but it will be a nice exhibition. It'll be nice to see him. It will be nice to see a legend of the sport. And then he goes out and he absolutely canes it, and you're like, shit, that dude is still really, really good. He's smoking a fag out the back of York Hall like before the show, and then delivering like the main event, like top level match. And that's Shah, where you could be like, Shah could be opening up in St. Neots, or the main event in York Hall. He can do it all.
Yeah, and let's look at the two Revolution Rumbles that there's been, right? Neither of the title matches have been the top guy versus the top guy.
No, Leighton Buzzard and Oku last year, wasn't it? And RKJ and Great O'Khan the year before.
There you go. Yeah.
It's a good memory, this.
Have you paid him his tenner yet?
Say again?
Have you paid him his tenner yet?
No.
Great. Yeah.
I've not seen. I have seen him since.
Oh, mate.
I have seen him since.
I think
I could have paid him his tenner at Royal Quest 2023. He was at the meet and greet that I went to. He wasn't actually part of the meet and greet, but he was just there.
Well,
yes, one day I will give the Great O'Khan the tenner that I owe him, because I had my photo taken with him, and he only told me that I'd have to charge after we'd taken the photo. But I didn't have cash on me, and he couldn't take cards, so it was like, not really sure what we're going to do, mate. I can't pay you, and we've already taken the photo, so thanks very much. I'm off.
I could just imagine him getting someone to like hand your phone over so you can delete it. Right, Dave, you know what? Let's give some final thoughts then on the Jay Joshua Zazaya match. Okay, so
and the thing is, like, you could say, like, we've spent loads of time talking about other things, and then we don't end up talking about one of the biggest matches on the card that much. But the Jay Joshua and Zazaya match was everything that their match in the 229 was. Again, it was like a kind of like a copy and paste. But for me, as one of there weren't many people in that crowd. It's a small place, Coventry, and I'm a people person, so I noticed who's there. There weren't many people that were in the 229 and Coventry. But for those of us that were, it was different enough that it didn't feel like I've literally just watched this. This is boring. It was very much, it was a lot more around the ring, and JJ was doing a lot of taking the piss out of Zazaya that he didn't do before, mocking him. So it was a bit more Jay Joshua, the wind-up merchant. It was very short. It didn't last particularly long, which again, it didn't need to. This isn't the payoff match. This is getting us there. And they did some things that were really like, oh, that was nasty. So anything that they did on the ramp, the stage, the ring apron, because it was all about teasing the count-out victory.
Yeah.
That was all like enough for you to be like the oohs and the ahs of the crowd. It was just good fun, mate. It was exactly what it needed to be. And my only negative would have been if it had gone like 15, 16, 17, 18 minutes, because it didn't need to, and it didn't. Like, it was exactly what I felt like it should be.
So for me, when this match got announced, I was like, so soon, because it was literally the last show. We had this chat about it where, and this is one you surmise it quite nicely there, but you've got the likes of us who watch RevPro so intently, we watch everything. So for us, it's like, really? But you saw them actually had in London, put it in front of a Coventry crowd that's never seen or just don't know what these guys can really do. Yeah, it's a fantastic bit of booking there. I thought the match, the way they did the performance the guys put in was really great. I felt the booking was a bit too tropey. We're doing the same kind of finish. We're reversing the finish, and look, that is something I could be critical of with other products. I will be critical here that it was the same but different, right? And what I did like is I did like that it was Desire was his own undoing for it, so we can see some character growth there from him, hopefully. And so that's not to say that it's all inherently bad. I just felt it was, if to me with this, it feels like we're rushing a little bit, and I felt that we had such a really strong start with that 229 where Jay just came in the ring, headbutted Desire, like we had the brawl beforehand, and then what we thought was going to be a Doncaster match, because for me, I think this match needed to be on a big stage. And I think that's probably my biggest issue I've had with this whole thing, is it felt like it should be on a big stage. And with all due respect,
it doesn't make any sense to do it on the big stage at your call, unless RevPro are going to do something that I've not seen them do before, which is 2 big stipulation matches, which are quite similar on the same show. And I think there's a reason they don't do that. I'm very critical when I watch, and AEW did it a lot last year, where there'd be more than one version of a stipulation match on the same show. And so you're kind of like, well, I'm a bit numb to any kind of weapon shot now.
Yeah,
because
I get that.
I just saw a load, and now you're going to have to escalate it.
Yeah.
Like, I loved the dog collar match last year because it was the dog collar, a single chair, and a cage. That was it.
Yeah.
And for me, that was beautifully simplistic. And I really liked the Uprising 2022 Greedy Souls versus Sunshine Machine street fight. And again, there were some really visceral moments in that. Brendan White using the turnbuckle on Chuck Mambo was like this really like nasty kind of image of like a crossface with it.
Yeah.
But if they then did another match, like 2 gone further down the card, it's too similar. So it feels like it's got to be at the J Cup, and then it feels like, is that a big enough stage for it? I think it'll work nicely. I think it'll be a nice palate cleanser.
Do you want me to tell you what I would love it to be? And I don't know if RevPro's ever done one. And I think for the stipulation what they've gone with, I think a cage match could be really good.
You reckon?
I don't know if I've ever seen that in RevPro before.
No, they've never done one. They've never done a cage match. Unless I'm mistaken. If I am, tell me, please.
Yeah, I don't think
done a ladder match. Not a cage. I'd love it to be last man standing.
Yeah, there's that.
Last man standing is one that I think is a little bit underused. I really like it. One of the feuds that made me fall back in love with wrestling was Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano in NXT. And that those kind of violent last man standing and street fight matches. But yeah, I'm curious to see where that goes, mate.
But you know what? I think that's it, right? Is this middle match is the conduit to get to that end match. And I love the first match. I know I'm gonna love the end match. I didn't dislike the middle match. It's just the tropes that we needed to get there were a bit tropey for me. And that's me being really hypercritical.
I've given myself some light. I've sat in the darkness for so long.
There's the lights on. Right. That's a good rundown there, mate. I feel like
I know, like the main event feels like one we talked very, very little about. For me, it was The one thing that I would like to just kind of add in is Emerson Jane convinced me in one match. I've never seen her live before, apart from the gauntlet match. And let's not forget, I was the one who was a bit down on the gauntlet match.
Yeah.
And it's like when I saw Mike DeVecchio and Igor Blong in the Revolution Rumble last year. It's like you don't get enough in your moments in those big multi-man matches to feel like you saw them and got a picture of them.
Yeah.
Emerson Jane in one match convinced me that she's the real deal.
Yeah, she really is.
You're just like, and that's not just her performance. Her performance was excellent, but also the booking her strongly.
Yeah. Yeah.
She won convincingly. There was an element of, there's enough plausible deniability there to be like, well, Kanji didn't lose clean, because Kanji probably would have won had Emerson not pulled Ref Harv over.
Yeah.
In that moment. But that was not the dirtiest of finish they could have done.
Exactly.
And it certainly wasn't a dirty finish where you're like, oh, well, you just spoiled a really...
Yeah.
The one that I always come back to is I remember when NXT and AEW were first kind of feuding, and NXT would just put in matches together. And it was like, Charlotte Flair, Rhea Ripley, boom, let's go. And then you're like watching a 15, 16-minute match and you're really invested in it, and then they just do a shoddy finish. You're like, I literally feel like you're taking the piss out of me. You're wasting my time.
Yeah.
It was nothing like that.
It was just a little thing.
Really delicately done.
Yeah.
I like the fact that Kanji lost.
Yes, so do I. I think that's really important.
There has to be some adversity in order for me to feel the catharsis that I am convinced is going to come. I'm still strongly believing, because I'm just not convinced anything is better than having Kanji be the one to take the belt off Mercedes. And therefore, I'm intrigued to see how we get there.
Yeah.
I assume we're going to get a bit of Emerson Jane versus Charlie Evans soon, if Charlie's still around. That was teased at the 229.
Yeah, I think
the women's locker room feels really fresh just by having a couple of new people in it.
It does. It really does. And by having that, there's some names that we haven't seen in a while as well, which means that when see Charlie's and that do cycle back out, some back
absolutely.
In. And like you said, keep it fresh.
If Nina Samuels comes back in, or if Lucia Lee comes back in, or when Anita Vaughan comes back in, that's going to feel quite fresh because we just haven't seen them for a little while. I feel like Andy's doing a really good job and not necessarily getting enough praise for how well he's managing a large number of talents, because it's not really ever been a problem that he's had.
Yeah, we've
always had a pretty tight ship and
different
imports to pad it out.
Yeah,
and now it feels like they've got the biggest array of wrestlers they've ever had. So juggling that many people, keeping people involved, keeping storylines beating along nicely, it's a really unenviable job. I feel like you're doing a really good job of it, and I feel like that's credit where credit's due there.
So in terms of the men's divisions, 36 different men have appeared. Right, so I'm not including tag
shows, right?
Not including tag team there. That's solely men's singles / trios. 36 different. Women's 19.
Yeah.
So
and I tell you what, there have been years in the past where there haven't been 19 women in the whole year.
Yeah.
And also, we're still really... It feels like we're approaching the halfway point of the calendar year.
Yeah.
But in terms of the RevPro year, we're nowhere near.
No.
Because RevPro seem to do about 40 shows a year, and we're only on 10.
Yeah.
There is a lot of wrestling to be had this year. So
yeah, well, we're about to enter a month where I think in the space of 5 weeks, I think there's 5 shows, isn't there? So
yeah,
like that is a lot of wrestling to do in that period.
And the schedule does look like it might be a little bit smaller this year. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't get to 40, if it ends up being 38, 39. just for the fact that there's only the 2 Stevenage shows that have been talked about. One, obviously, we know, and then Andy said that there's going to be another one later on in the year. I think it's on the Gordon Craig website, because I'm sure I got the date down in my diary.
Is it? Okay.
But
and then we've got another Doncaster as well.
I'm sure in his tweet he said another show.
Yeah.
He might have said the next show, but when you look at it and you're like, well, if the next one is like 4 or 5 months' time, there's probably not going to be one a month later.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm pretty sure of it, yeah. We know there's no St. Neots. He said a couple of Wolverhampton shows are in the plans.
Yeah, one more
this
Doncaster.
Is all just taking it from the Q&A. And I'd imagine there's a couple more Doncaster.
Yeah, one more for there.
But
which is going to be announced soon, apparently.
Like the Stevenage Sheffield Weekenders.
Yeah.
Where you'd get 2 shows in a weekend. They're not really happening this year.
No.
So it suggests it might be a couple less. But then, at the same time, who was expecting a show in Lyon to be announced?
Well, yeah, there is that, mate. Yeah.
You know, so who knows? You just don't know.
Certainly not us, mate. We were not expecting that, but
no. And we tried really hard, didn't we?
We did, mate. You know what, though? We will definitely, for the next one, hopefully there is another one somewhere. Like I said,
I think it would be very different for a Saturday show.
Yes, yeah.
Because what's preventing me from going is I can't just take a day off work as a teacher, so I can't take the Monday off work. So I have to get a flight home after the show Sunday night to be able to get to work Monday morning, and there just aren't. There are no flights.
And
there are no flights out of Lyon to anywhere London way on the Sunday night. And the sleeper trains won't work because I've then got to get from London to Bedford. Then I've got to get from Bedford to where I actually work. It's all a bit of a mess.
Literally looked at planes, trains, not automobiles.
At any point on the Sunday. So
yeah. We looked at everything we could, my friend. You know what? I won't even lie to you. Right? I had a look and went, whereabouts in France is Lyon?
Yeah.
I had a look for driving, right? Just see if that was
that's it. Because I was like, maybe I could just drive, not knowing the geography of France well enough. And then I looked and I was like, oh shit, Lyon's like.
I forgot Lyon is more southern France, but well, there'll be another one that will come up, my friend, and we'll definitely.
Yeah, this is it, mate. Like, I'd love to next year. Like this year, I can't do Barcelona. This weekend, that was already. I knew I wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
And then we're going on holiday when the Berlin show is on. Which I will admit, I timed that intentionally because I looked at August. My missus wanted to go away in August with the kids, just a nice little seaside holiday with her mum and her brother. And we're going to Wales. We're going to go to Penarth, which is a regular little spot for us. And I literally looked at the RevPro schedule and was like, "Is there a week where there's no show in August?" Yes, they're going to Germany. We'll go that week. So 100%, that's how committed I am. I'm booking my family holidays around the RevPro schedule.
Oh, mate,
I'm determined. Every show this year in the UK, I want to get to. That's my goal.
I just hope, for your sake, mate, they do not announce a show up in Scotland.
Mate, yeah. The thing is, if it's in Scotland, I'll convince myself I can just drive there.
Nice. Well, I tell you what, mate. In that case, I will drive to yours.
And mate, it's literally like I can just imagine. Yeah. How are you getting to the show in Glasgow, Dave? I'm driving in my 15-year-old Polo that's got no back windscreen wiper, that's rusting, that needs oil every 200 miles. You know, I could take the nice car, but no. My Polo humbles me. It reminds me of my lowly status as a trainee teacher when I first bought it, and reminds me how far I've come in my teaching career.
Look, mate, it's only a 6.5 hour drive, okay? Only.
Boom! Easy.
So knowing the way you drive, mate, it's a 5 hour drive.
I'll be there in 3 hours.
Yeah. All right. On that note, my friend, it's been great to see you. It's been great to chat. Till next time.
Loved it, mate. Always do.
See you later, buddy.
See you next.